Hey everyone, Liv here from ECA Partners. What I've got here is another video in our Path 2 series. So what I'm sharing is a set of insights if you're someone who is aspiring to get into an M&A or corporate development role. Here at ECA, given that we are an executive search firm that focuses on value creation roles across strategy, finance, and operations, these corporate development/M&A roles are some of the most common that we help our clients find top-tier talent for. Here's the roadmap we're going to be covering for the next 10 minutes or so. We're going to start discussing why there's demand in the first place for these kind of roles and which sorts of firms are fueling that demand. We're then going to dig a little into the 4 different aspects of corporate development/M&A roles before moving on to consider the skill sets ideal candidates will possess for these positions. We're then going to talk about how to get hired, and I'm going to share some of the most popular career trajectories we see, then share some tips about how to optimize your materials to make sure you stand out from the crowd. Finally, we'll be talking money and cover what sorts of salaries M&A and Corp Dev roles tend to command. A quick note on terminology. Corp Dev and M&A roles are similar, but they are not precisely the same. For the sake of style and brevity though, I'll be using them pretty much interchangeably until about halfway through, when I'll spend a little bit of time digging into the differences in some more detail. So if you are aspiring to an M&A role, the good news is that they are in growing demand. This year, on LinkedIn's 25 Jobs on the Rise, M&A managers ranked at number 16. I'll pause on this slide to highlight a couple of things that I'll be returning to later, namely that most common industries include management consulting, and top roles people transition into M&A roles from is investment banking. So the big question to answer is, what's driving this demand? One overarching driver, and one that we're really attuned to here at ECA, is that 85% of our clients are PE firms or their portfolio companies. This means the drive for M&A roles is really related to the fact that deal flow has either kind of kept consistent or has actually been increasing. Another one is that the PE playbook has become more systematized in a way that prioritizes mergers and acquisitions. In short, the PE market has become saturated to the point where PE firms can no longer guarantee great returns on their investments just by playing the market right, so buying and selling at the right time. They really need to have more active, hands-on value creation and growth strategies, and acquiring the right targets is a great way to achieve these goals. As the third point here indicates, we're also seeing M&A becoming more important across the corporate landscape, more broadly beyond the private equity world. As Malcolm Lloyd, a global deals partner at PwC, has recently said, there are more strategic decisions being made to, quote, enhance portfolio optimization as deal makers divest to free up capital to focus on acquiring capabilities and transforming core business areas through M&A. The last context point to cover is what sorts of companies are looking to bring in people in an M&A or corporate development capacity. These are companies that are essentially more mature than the venture capital stage. M&A roles start to become common during companies that have been PE backed and are in the growth equity phase, and this continues through buyout and beyond. Okay, so on to the next section. What do M&A and corporate development roles actually involve? The first part of an acquisition involves selecting a good target. This is known as the deal sourcing stage. This involves a lot of market research, due diligence, and networking, among other things, to find targets that meet a carefully defined criteria. The next key part is transaction support. This requires getting into the financial weeds to help with the purchase. This also involves a lot of evaluation, so more due diligence, deal analysis, and getting right down to the nitty-gritty parts of the relevant data. Then we come to the integration process itself. You often see the acronym PMI crop up here, which stands for post-merger integration. This part is really important. About half of M&A deals fail or underperform relative to their projected potential. When I speak to candidates, it's actually not uncommon to hear that they're looking for a job because their company got acquired and they don't really like the new environment very much. So it's one thing to find a great company to acquire, it's another to make it work well. Synergies need to be maximized across processes and cultures in order for the company's competitive position to really be advanced. Finally, let's talk about strategic projects. This can mean a couple of things. Within the M&A process, this can be seen as a final step where the acquired company is put to work, and people involved in this part are going to be overseeing those processes. But this is also a helpful moment to make a couple of points about the differences between corporate development and M&A. M&A is more often than not, the dominant part of corporate development. But corporate development can involve a lot more than just deciding what targets to go after and seeing that process through. It can also encompass other ways to grow and add value, such as setting up long-term strategic partnerships or even divesting part of the businesses that no longer fit with company objectives. Here's another snapshot into how M&A roles and Corp Dev roles would differ somewhat at different size companies. Corp Dev roles, especially at a larger company, generally see much slower volume, so perhaps 1 to 3 deals per year, whereas private equity add-ons tend to be more frequent because of the smaller scale. As such, these M&A roles are going to involve a lot more on the sourcing and transaction side, whereas the Corp Dev roles are going to spend more effort making sure that the acquisitions that have gone through are really working fantastically. So let's move on and talk about ideal candidates. Unsurprisingly, a lot of M&A roles are going to require fantastic financial modeling skills as a core competency. Even senior associate roles are going to require a thorough understanding of a 3-statement model. Depending on where the emphasis falls within the M&A job, they're also going to expect quality candidates to have extensive experience in due diligence, transaction execution, or PMI. Okay, so when our clients come to us to help them find a great Corp Dev or M&A person, what do we tend to discuss in terms of an ideal background profile? There are 2 main career paths to these roles: consulting and investment banking. Consultants are going to be very smart, very driven, and very strategic, but generally lighter on the financial modeling side than the investment bankers. If our client is looking for a more strategic M&A person, they're likely to want a candidate from a top consulting firm. Some tend to be slightly more impressed or lean towards people from the Tier 1 MBB firms, though this differs a lot depending on the client. For some specific M&A roles, often those that spike more on the PMI side of things, clients will prefer candidates with a Big Four background. Like I said, M&A or Corp Dev roles that are heavier on the financial side, for these roles, I would say a background in investment banking from a company like one of these is pretty much a must-have. So if your background ticks these boxes, that is great. But it's a competitive environment out there, and it's well worth taking some active steps to make sure you stand out. If you click this link on the screen now, you'll be taken to a point in a recent video where I go into optimizing your LinkedIn profile in some more detail. The final thing to always consider once you've connected to a recruiter is to tailor your resume to the specific role in question. The final thing to cover is, what do salaries look like for these various roles? Now, if we're talking about the head of corporate development for a large global company, it's going to depend a lot on the industry area and the region. What I've got up here is some information pulled from our proprietary database, Cascade, which shows the breakdown of salary, that is the base salary, by percentage for corporate development roles in the healthcare space based out of New York City. There's a large range, but we can see a spike here around the mid-200Ks. For head of M&A roles at private equity-backed companies, we have a few more data points to share. Here we're seeing a spread across a similar range, but with a spike slightly higher in the upper 300Ks for base salary. It's also very common for roles like these, especially at the higher levels, to come with an equity component if the company is in the PE space, or other incentives if they're larger and public. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this overview was helpful. If you have any questions about the work we do here at ECA, don't hesitate to get in touch via the website. Here we are at eca-partners.com, or you can reach out directly to me or my lovely colleague, Stephen. Thank you so much, and if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.